And welcome to another edition of
Stupid is, stupid does, sir.
This is Truth to Ponder with Bob Bierman.
And welcome to Truth to Ponder for this Tuesday. I'm your host, Bob Bierman. Well, sometimes if you don't have a sense of humor, if you can't make fun of all the stupidity you see, it will drive you absolutely crazy. I've been doing some reading over these past couple of weeks. Things going on in our world, news stories, and we talk about the serious issues of the day. And there are many serious issues we need to really be as Christians and people of faith. We need to pay attention. There are a lot of bad things happening out there. I'm deeply concerned. But sometimes you look at the people that are in charge of everything and you just throw your hands up and go, these people are crazy. I mean, I'm sorry to say it, I'm sorry to be so direct, but when I look at some of the people in leadership positions in our government today, these people are certifiably crazy. I mean, really. Richard Levine, who goes by the name Rachel Levine. He's a man, looks like a man, but he thinks he's a woman. And you look at him and you go, seriously, dude, take a look in the mirror. You are not a woman. You graduated college as a man. You got married. You have children. Then you woke up one day and said,
"Man, I feel like a woman."
And now you are the Assistant Secretary of Health in the United States and Human Services. You have a problem, Mr. Levine. You have a mental illness issue. You shouldn't be talking about and being in charge of the health of the United States. I wonder sometimes, seriously, I often wonder, do people in Washington, D.C. sit around a table and come up with the most crazy and outlandish things to do, say, and propose, and see how far they can get away with it? Because nobody in their right non-reprobated mind would do some of the things we are seeing in our nation today. We've been slouching into this direction for a long time. And it seems that about every year or so, it just amplifies and gets worse. When I graduated high school, thinking about my future and my career, I looked at the world then, and I had a lot to learn, but I didn't see what I would call today this mass insanity with people in leadership and positions of government like I see today. Nobody in their right mind would have gotten on television and said, this is my candidate. Yeah, this is my candidate for Health and Human Services. You know, it's a guy that runs around in a dress and claims he's a woman. And this same individual, when confronted, do you believe it is appropriate for children, like even 8 and 9 years old, to be put on hormone blockers because the parents or somebody might think, or the child may think, well, maybe I want to be a boy or maybe I want to be a girl? We have now normalized and encouraged mental disorders. I understand, before you send me an email and think that I'm being hateful, I do understand there are extremely rare, let me make that clear, extremely rare circumstances where there is a, for lack of a better term, I know it doesn't sound nice, but a biological error. I understand that. But today we are just having people reimagine or rethink who I am. And we're encouraging people to live in a fantasy land that's not real. We have young men. They couldn't succeed in men's sports. And so they put on some makeup and claim I'm a woman, and now they're winning track and field events in women's sports to get those trophies and the scholarships and all that goes with it. We have come to the point in the United States and the Western world as a whole. I mean, I'm including Australia, I'm including the United Kingdom, Canada, Your premier is a special kind of crazy. But then again, our new president is competing and might even overtake the stupidity of any of the world leaders we have today. I have never seen anything like this. When you look at it with an honest assessment. The Chinese are sitting over there in China, in Beijing, and they've got to be laughing at us for the silly things we do. And I don't know who pushed this concept of the dumb stuff we're doing. Yeah, why don't we just open up the borders and let everybody come in? We have homeless veterans on the streets. Yet we're going to be spending, $86 million or more to house illegal immigrants in hotels, catch them, release them anywhere in the country they want to go. And then you have Democrats wanting to, hey, let's make them voters too. I mean, as long as they're here, why don't we get rid of all voter ID requirements? No ID at all. It's like one Border Patrol agent said. This young man came across the border, had a full beard, kind of muscular, and he said, how old are you? And he said, 14. They're not allowed to challenge that. Just take it at face value. Yeah, more like 24 or 34, but 14. And so he gets to be housed, and he'll be moved somewhere in the United States. And if the Democrats have their way, he can walk into any polling place and say, I want a ballot. I want a ballot. I want to vote. You cannot stop me. It is my right. I am here. You must let me vote. Can I see an ID? No, you cannot. But I have a right to vote. I'm waiting for this to be challenged. If you can't ask for an ID to register to vote, then I shouldn't have to have an ID when I drive a car. I shouldn't have to have an ID if you want to purchase anything that is required to be of a certain age. I mean, why have laws about IDs for things like alcohol, tobacco, and firearms? I mean, if we don't need one to vote, then by all logic, we don't need it for anything. Just take our word for what we say. But the same ones that will demand no voter identification will demand all kinds of ID and background checks for everything else in our lives that they want to control. They're looking for a permanent voting class. You know it. I know it. I'm just giving you the obvious. But if we don't look at it, if we don't just shake our head, even laugh at it, and I'm going to tell you, laughter is a good medicine. And what I want to make clear, in showing the absurdities, some of the absurdities I'm going to share today, I'm going to show you in just a handful of examples. I could probably find thousands more if I had the time. I'm going to show you tons of current day examples of
stupid is, stupid does, sir.
One of the first questions you have to ask yourself when you think about some of the really weird stuff going on and things being pushed by our government. There's so many moving pieces, it's oftentimes hard to keep track of. Everything from critical race theory, everything from the coronavirus, everything from transgenderism, everything to appease the LGBTQ and whatever other letter they want to add and plus symbol. We are constantly being bombarded by our media and those in our government. And there are times that I've had to think, why? Is there a reason for all these moving pieces and all this insanity being thrown at us all at one time? My wife says it so well. You put it on the TV nowadays, it wears you down. It simply wears you down. Like, what next? What other stupid thing can they do? What are they going to do now? I said it in recent days, and I'll say it again. One of the biggest problems our nation faces are two primary problems, and everything, I think, evolves from these two issues. Number one, We as a nation have turned our back on an almighty God. We have mocked him, made fun of him, abused the gifts that he's given us. We've shoved him in a box. We no longer give honor at all, even token honor, like we once did. And so we have destroyed the moral foundation of our nation. And if you know anything about building a house, if a house is not on a good foundation, it's going to fail. Ultimately, the house will collapse, fail, break. Foundations cannot be sinking sand. They got to be rock. They got to be concrete. They've got to be solid. And we've been gradually getting rid of our moral foundation, where whatever's in my imagination works for me. We've also removed absolutes as a part of that, which is an educational issue. When you can talk to a high school graduate and say, okay, so 2 + 3 = 5, and they will say, well, it can be whatever you want it to be, and don't laugh at me. Well, laugh at them, but don't laugh at me. I've actually had that conversation with a real high school graduate who was wearing fancy cords around their neck because they were a couple of years ago in a big high school graduation ceremony. Didn't do any real work for 4 years, but studied wokedom. And so everything is relative. Everything belongs to what I want or what I feel or what I think today. So we take out God from the equation. We take out common sense and logic out of the equation. And then you divide people into groups. That's your next phase. Divide people into groups. And for this, the globalists have in their back pocket the mainstream media to keep spouting their falsehood and trying to turn it into truth. Goebbels, during World War II, made the statement, if you want to get the people to believe things, tell a really, really big lie and just keep saying it over and over again. And ultimately, in time, it'll become the established truth. Nowadays, it takes less time than it did in Goebbels. I mean, Goebbels had to use, producing films and controlling the newspaper and the radio. And today, we do it even faster. We have two-way communication called the Internet. And so all you need to do is get the NBCs, the ABCs, the CBSs, and everybody else on board and all their sub-companies and a few major publications. You get them on board with what you're trying to do. That being woke is a wonderful thing. Being understanding, being accepting, being tolerant is a good thing. And they are. But those can be used to beat you over the head because you go from putting up with, tolerating, to full acceptance and embracing if you're not careful. See, it's systematic. Things that you and I may not thoroughly believe in or do not believe in at all, in order for us to function in much of this world, we have to accept it or we're not good enough. About a month ago, earlier last month, I was talking in terms of what we're going to be seeing coming down the pike. Many brokerage houses are beginning to create kind of a social and environmental and governance score on many corporations. So if you're the woke investor wanting to decide where your 401k money's going to, you can go to this social credit score. They're good to the environment. They have a small carbon footprint. They believe in gender equality and this equality and any woke thing coming down the pike. And they believe in the Green New Deal. They believe you can tax yourself into prosperity. And on it goes. And so if you are the mind-deluded individual we have today in much of the world that occasionally watches CNN Or if they watch anything, maybe they watch the late night comedians to get their news. And that's even a scarier thought. How many people today are getting their news from late night comedians and Facebook and Twitter? They're getting controlled opinions. And if they ever deviate from the narrative, of course, you get suspended or you get shadow banned, or the things you're writing nobody ever sees. Goebbels would never have believed. Khrushchev, Mao Zedong, would never believe the power we have in the media today and the power they wield over us. And the same people that are doing all this to us are becoming billionaires from and because of us. It's not just a nefarious position on their part. They're enjoying the money they're making selling you out, selling your data. And they can't wait to make even more money from you with like vaccine certificates and what have you, like little vaccine passports. You're allowed to come into the store now because you've had the vaccine. We'll talk about that probably on today's program. Maybe even again, I'm getting a little concerned about some things, and I think many of us need to really think carefully about where we're heading to in the future. I want to share a little bit of an article that my brother up in Virginia shared to me. I don't have time to read all of it. It is really pretty good, but I would never be able to get it all in. And it starts out, it's by Arnold Allert, and it's in the Patriot Post. And it's like no secret that everything from the progressive left embraces, from critical race theory to open borders to transgender to the cancel culture and all things in between, is based on this self-aggrandizing notion that it owns, that the left of this country owns the franchise on superior wisdom and morality, which obviously they don't. Those who disagree are not just wrong, they are bigots, deplorables, bitter clingers, irredeemables, supremacists, privileged, yada, 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 ad nauseum. Yet there is one group of people that not only knows exactly who American progressives are, but won't be the slightest bit intimidated by anything they have to say or do. And it's kind of funny because here who the group that could care less and laughs at the entire country, and also laughs at these as they laugh at the Chinese communists, laugh at America's left. They are useful idiots for their cause. Joe Biden is nothing more than a useful idiot with cognitive issues getting out in front of the American people and doing all this bizarre stuff. It's like they're on a race to the bottom. We're going to get there. There's a term, as this article says, a derogatory term called biazu. Biazu, a derogatory term that refers to white leftist elites. It's basically useful idiots. And it's become increasingly popular among China's, let's just say, those in charge. The curious rise of the white left as a Chinese internet insult was written way back in 2017, 4 years ago, by a guy named Shang Chen, who is a PhD in political theory, and he got to the heart of the criticism. He notes that this term refers to people who only care about topics such as immigration, minorities, LGBTQ+, and what have you, and, of course, the environment. And they have absolutely, now listen to this, these people that are so concerned about racial equality, immigration, LGBTQ, worshiping the environment, they have no idea of all the real problems facing the world and don't want to know. Furthermore, they only advocate for peace and equality to satisfy their own feelings of moral superiority. And the most dangerous thing that ever came along in my youth, political correctness. When I first heard that term, I think it was the 1970s, it came out somewhere. I never understood what it was, and I'm thinking, this is crazy. Nobody in their right mind would ever go along with some of the things that were being said then about political correctness. But guess what? We not only have gone there, we have raced light years ahead, in my opinion.
Stupid is, stupid does, sir.
And those with a reprobate mind that seemingly want to destroy America, enslave us, though they don't believe they're doing that, those that want to change this country. I can remember when Chuck Schumer used those words, today Georgia, tomorrow the world. Literally, is what he said. And my question to a guy like Chuck Schumer is, change it to what? What do you want to change it to be? A nation and world full of 8 and 9-year-olds getting their bodies full of hormones to change their gender and puberty? To have all this insanity become normalized? To make same-sex marriages more desirable than the nuclear family? I mean, what are you trying to see? And don't give me this equality nonsense, because there is no equality. There is no equality with what you're trying to deliver to us. You are trying to fundamentally do more than just change this country. You are trying to decimate this nation and be one of the elites that become rulers. A number of years ago, and I wish I had the audio clip still, but let's go back to early 2009. Now, we have been on this downward spiral for quite a long time in our country. From the time that Bill Clinton took office, the White House was, shall we say, stained beyond recognition. Protocol, everything. Any kind of sick thinking and mentality was allowed to move into the White House and become normalized. Now, they were careful enough not to boldly proclaim it, but they were disingenuous, the Clintons, to so many groups and people. They'll tell you anything you want to hear for them to keep their power. You know that. I know it. And it's the same thing today. I really believe what the Bible teaches about the reprobate mind, given over to their own desires. The Bible warns, and this is what I want you to understand, because there is some hope in all this, too. I mean, we can sit here and I can outline a few of these crazy things, like from this article in front of me, and what the background information is. I can tell you these things. You know, just like the Chinese laugh at the left, because they know that in the long run they're really harmless. They're only as harmful as we let them become. Now, let me say that again. The left in this nation is only as harmful as we let them become. Well, wait a minute. They got a lot of power. Well, they only have as much power as they can get in the voting booth. And when we bring in politicians like Georgia did that are rhinos, and they really don't pay attention to the voting, then elections get stolen in the state of Georgia. And I don't care what anybody in government in Georgia says. I'm going to go by something the Bible made real clear. Avoid even the appearance of evil. And what happened last year in 2020 in Georgia in the election was way beyond just the appearance of evil. And everybody tries to deny that there's evil, and when anybody wants to take a closer look, it's told you can't do it. No. You can't look at what we did. That doesn't seem nice. I mean, don't you just trust us? Funny how the Georgia legislature is in panic mode and has passed a lot of things to repair the damage done last year that allowed the election, in my opinion. I don't care what Facebook says. The elections were fair and honest. The vaccines are safe in this. You know, I don't care what Facebook says. Facebook is not a credible source. We need fact checkers to check the stupid fact checkers at Facebook, because they're in it for two things: billions of more dollars And they want to be in the elite that control the narrative. They like it. They like being the ministers of truth. Twitter likes being the arbitrator of what can and cannot be said. YouTube, what you can see and what you cannot see. Do you see what's happening? The Chinese look at our world, and they look at this elite class trying to be globalist. And the Chinese deep down inside are going, all of you people are idiots. You globalists, you folks like Bill Gates, Jeff Bezos, you're all ignorant. I mean, look at Jeff Bezos. How does he make all his money? Selling a bunch of Chinese stuff on Amazon that's delivered right to your house. Oh, I know there's some things made in the USA, but, Amazon is just the lazy man's way to shop, and it all comes from China to their warehouse to your house. And he makes billions of dollars in the process. The folks at Twitter, the folks at Facebook, they just sell out your personal information to any company willing to pay the price. Google does the same thing. Do you ever wonder how Google makes all their money? I mean, some people will stop and let me ask, how does Google make their money? I mean, they're giving you free Gmail. They're giving you Google Docs. You can put your documents up online. Your pictures are safely stored in their cloud. I saw a great T-shirt that says there's no such thing as the cloud. It's just somebody else's computer. If you didn't catch that, let me say it again. There is no such thing as the cloud. It is just somebody else's computer. So when you decide you want to store your pictures and your documents in the cloud, you're just storing it at a bunch of big, monstrous computers that Google owns, which means that they have your data. That means they have your pictures. That means they have your passwords. That means they know all about your prescriptions, probably in many cases. They know when you have doctor appointments. They know when you've bought something from Amazon. They know a lot about your life. They probably know when your driver's license expires. They know your birthday. They probably know your Social Security number. And young people today just give up all that information willingly. And this is stuff that can be marketed. And the other way Google makes money, isn't it nice when you can use Google Maps and you can actually see the road where that little car traveled, the little Google car with the little tiny camera, that picks up at all angles, up, down, and sideways, every which way but loose. They've been doing that because they were getting paid mega dollars, billions, from local and county governments all over the United States for mapping. If you are in any county, there are lots of maps out there, like where hazardous material is stored. Now, while there's still companies that are doing certain mapping for property taxes, a lot of the maps now you can do cheaper and buy from Google and then put your own layers on those maps. They're making billions of dollars from government, billions of dollars from private industry, and all they're doing is invading your privacy to learn everything about you. Ever wonder why you'll start getting emails or things to any of your accounts, especially from Amazon, on things you're looking for? They're eavesdropping on you. And a lot of people don't understand it. The Chinese are not afraid of the left because they consider them weak. They consider them mentally weak. I consider them mentally weak, but we've empowered them to do stupid and crazy things like what's going on our border right now. Sure, let's stop building the wall. Sure, let's invite another 1 or 2 or 3 to come on over. In the middle of a pandemic. Everybody in our country can't go to school in many places because the teachers, we're going to get infected by little Bobby over there who's he may have the coronavirus and his face mask, may not protect me. So let's stay on Zoom class. Or some pinheaded government employee that never will lose their paycheck or thinks they'll never lose it. I think we should shut down the restaurants to 20% capacity. Well, how are they going to live on 20% revenue? Well, that's not my problem. They need to figure it out. Okay, how about we take away 80% of your paycheck this week? Oh, no, you can't do that. I work for the government. You can't take my money. It goes back to the wisdom of Forrest Gump.
Stupid is, stupid does, sir.
And guess what?
And that's all I have to say about that.
Right now, we need to take a break, and we shall be right back.
This is Truth to Ponder with Bob Bierman.
The mystery of the rising gods. Shalom Aleichem. This is the nice Jewish boy, Jonathan Kahn, your Jewish connection, bringing you the riches of your Jewish roots in Jesus. Now get your pen out as fast as you can so you don't miss out on receiving a special free gift you're going to get and love in a moment. Now, critics charge that the resurrection of Jesus is just a myth based on the stories of rising gods throughout the world. Well, we have to deal with it. It is true that all across the world we hear of gods rising up from the dead in the springtime. The pagan world was filled with them. There was Osiris in Egypt, Tammuz in Babylon, Mot in Canaan, Adonis in Phoenicia, and Dionysius in Greece, to name a few. So the critics charge the writers of the New Testament simply borrowed the myth into the gospel. Only one problem. The writers of the New Testament were overwhelmingly Orthodox Jews to whom the pagan world and its myths were unkosher, unclean, and blasphemous. For them to end their history of Messiah's life on earth with a pagan myth is as ridiculous as the Grand Rabbi of Israel shaving his head to join Hare Krishna. The Gospels are historical and accurate documents of real first-century events. And the fact that Jewish people, the most monotheistic and unpagan people in the world, could proclaim and give their lives for the report of a rising God, all the more can only be explained by one event. Messiah did indeed rise from the dead. But what about all those stories of the rising gods throughout the world? Real simple. The resurrection is universal and for all people. So is it strange that peoples of all nations should hope for it and dream of it and long for it? No. You see, even the rising gods bear witness to the resurrection. So don't be fooled by imitations, by a diluted gospel or a weak faith. The resurrection is solid, real, and life-changing. Therefore, my friend, be strong and walk in its power and triumph in its victory in every part of your life, because anything else is just an imitation. Want more? Ask for the rising God. Now, the free gift for you. What if you discovered the place where the lost Ark of the Covenant was? Well, a newly revealed ancient discovery just as awesome. The mystery of the temple doors. It's our free gift to you, and Sapphire's daily spiritual vitamins guaranteed to revitalize your walk. How do you get all these free gifts? Just remember Jesus' Hebrew name, Yeshua, and dial it. Call now. 1-800-YESHUA-1. Call now, 1-800-YESHUA-1. Now, the Jewish people brought you the blessings of salvation. I invite you to join with me to bring it back to them, to bless those who blessed you, the unreached peoples of the world from every nation. Just call now, 1-800-YESHUA-1. That's YESHUA-1. Or write me direct, The Nice Jewish Boy, Box 1111, Lodi, New Jersey, 07644. That's Box 1111, LODI, Lodi, New Jersey, 07644. Till next time, this is Jonathan Kahn saying Shalom Aleichem, peace be to you, my friend, in Messiah Tikvatenu, our hope.
This is Truth to Ponder with Bob Bierman.
And I want to welcome you back to part 2 of our Tuesday edition of the program, Truth to Ponder. Before I get into a few things I've got in front of me here on my desk, I just wanted to take a moment to thank all of you that listen to the program each and every week. Now, these past weeks, we've been trying to get, just so you know, several programs ahead. We are doing some travel this week, and hopefully we'll be back in just a day or two or three. And the program can also now go with us on the road. So program will be here each and every day, but we were trying to get ready for some travel. And I'll tell you more about the trip maybe a little bit later this week. For those of you that listen each day, many of you know we air this program on international shortwave. And it's exciting. It's a wonderful opportunity that we have in doing everything we need to do in getting the word out to people that may not find it in most of the mainstream media. That's one of the advantages of shortwave. It's almost like hiding in plain sight. I've noticed that a lot of people are discovering shortwave for the first time. I've had several now that never had listened to shortwave before in their life. They're in their 50s and 60s, and now they own a radio, and they're amazed that they can pick up these signals from so far away, and they can see the value that I do. When tech tyrants may shut certain things down, we still have a way to get the word out. For many of those that would hate the gospel, they also believe their life is only in a cell phone. They have no idea about this other medium. So we are thankful for the ability of literally covering most of the United States during each day on shortwave radio. Now, it's not free, and I want to thank those that have been helping us in that area. Currently, the only bill we're paying for this entire ministry is just the shortwave airtime bill. There's a little bit of hosting and stuff for the website, but it's immaterial. It's strictly, we, during the course of the month, save up to pay in advance for the next month. So if you'd be inclined to give us a little help, you can do so. You can do it from the website, which is truth2ponder.com, truth2ponder.com. And also, if you want to mail your help and support, you can make it out to Ancient Word Radio. And our address here is 21 Berkshire, Berkshire, 21 Berkshire Lane in Sky Valley, Georgia. By the way, on the line that says 21 Berkshire Lane, add number 263. That is our private little P.O. box that they use for regular mail. That is number 263. It's secure. A lot of people worry about that. In Sky Valley, Georgia, 30537. And anything you send this month will be used to cover our time. Can you believe it? Going into May? We're going to be in the month of May in not that many weeks. Where has the year of 2021 gone? Well, in the first part of the program, obviously, we were talking about some of the crazy things we see in this world. And the Bible, of course, is so clear about the reprobate mind. They do things that just anybody with common sense know these people are nuts. Even non-Christians can figure out some of these people are crazy. But the Bible talks about a certain group of people, and I want to get into that in just a few minutes. This is, that where a lot of this comes from. We have all these weird things happening at once. And it's kind of like, is this a concerted effort? And it dawns on me that it really isn't. Even the Chinese, who don't worship the earth, they worship their money and their power. Look at the people in charge on the left. They look at the Richard or Rachel Levees of this world and they shake their heads and go, these people over there are crazy. They're nutcases. And then we have all these strange policies coming out of this new White House that are literally insane. Now, I will say this. This is strictly my opinion. I don't believe that Joe Biden is really making any of these decisions. I don't think he makes any decisions in that White House. I think he's just a figurehead that's being used. There is a staff of these reprobates all over the White House who have sold their souls out to every evil thing under the sun, and they begin with their worship of the planet Earth, the creation. They worship it. Mother Earth, their God is the earth, and they consider themselves the royalty on this earth to preserve and protect it. The gatekeepers, so to speak. And they now have this mindset, they know more about everything than you. When you try to have a conversation with some of these people, it is totally impossible because they just shut you off. They don't want to hear anything of what you have to say. Nothing. None. Zero. Because it goes against their narrative. They don't want their narrative impacted. The other problem is those that make use of those reprobate-minded people that are now in power. Think about this. those that will make use of the reprobated-minded people that are in power. And that's our wealthy in this world. Many of these wealthy super billionaires. There's a special billionaire class. We never heard of a billionaire class when I was coming along. But now we have one. And some of the people that are in that class are very dangerous individuals, in my opinion. They hold some very strange opinions. Bill Gates comes to mind, number one. Bill Gates, the head of Microsoft for ages. Bill Gates is not the smart, super genius, technical person everybody assumed that he was. History pretty well tells us he kind of stole an operating system and marketed to IBM, and then pretty well ripped off the concept that Apple had for a graphic user interface. And then with the money that he got from doing that, he hired people that thus built the Microsoft operating systems from basically Windows 3.1 on to Windows 95, 98, 98 second edition, SE, 2000, XP, all their software. And he became a multi-billionaire because he was in the right place at the right time. IBM decided to license their product so others could build it. Apple did not. That's why there are more PCs than Apples out there today. It would have been a different world had it been done as a license scheme. But that's neither here nor there. Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, Walmart's, all these large companies run by a slate of billionaires now. And many of them don't have your personal best interest at heart. They're looking at their bottom line. In the book of James, and I just happened to stumble across this as I was preparing for the show today. And during the break, I took a quick look at it. James, the book of James, the epistle, chapter 5. Let's begin at verse 1. Go to now, ye rich men, weep and howl for your miseries that shall come upon you. Your riches are corrupted. Your garments are moth-eaten. Your gold and silver is cankered, and the rust of them shall be a witness against you. And you shall eat your flesh as it were fire. You have heaped treasure together for the last days. Behold, the hire of the laborers who have reaped down your fields, which is of you kept back by fraud, crieth, and the cries of them which have reaped are entered into the ears of the Lord of Sabaoth. You have lived in pleasure on the earth, and have been wanton. You have nourished your hearts as in a day of slaughter. You have condemned and killed the just, and he doth not resist you. Be patient, therefore, brethren, unto the coming of the Lord. Behold, the husbandman that cometh and waiteth for the precious fruit of the earth, and hath long patience for it, until he receive the early and latter rain. But also be patient, establish your hearts, for the coming of the Lord draweth nigh. It is true when it comes to the rich man. And I'm not saying having money is necessarily a bad thing. It's what you worship with. What is the object of your worship? Your bank account or the Lord God, the creator of the universe? Many of these wicked rich people, not rich people, now understand that. I've met many people that have done well in their lives financially, and they give accordingly. The Bible says, to whom much is given, much is required. And they do. There's a class of wealthy people today. There is a class of wealthy people today that believe that somehow they can, with their money, extend the length of their days on this earth. They believe they've got this power over everybody else. And they feel that they're almost worshipped like a god. Even politicians in Washington, many get that way. Look at Nancy Pelosi just for one moment. Her arrogant attitude. I will get what I want. You will listen to what I have to say. You will do as I tell you to do. She believes she's among this new class of Americanized royalty. Many of her compadres in the Congress and the Senate feel the same. And they are going to change America because they have the power and they can. And think about this for a moment. I want you to just to think about this. Why would somebody like a Chuck Schumer or a Nancy Pelosi or a Joe Biden or a Kamala Harris think it's a great idea to open our borders up, and all we're doing is enhancing the human slavery and sex trade at the border? And they refuse to see it. They were unmerciful making the fake claim that, oh, Trump is putting them in cages, the cages built during the Obama and Biden administration. And now it is vastly worse. And now they don't want anybody to see what they're doing. You know, evil hates light. Evil just thrives and loves darkness. And right now, the Harris-Biden administration, that's what I call it because he's not in charge. They want to keep the light of truth off what is happening on our border in the United States. Because if the average American that doesn't pay attention had any clue of what was really going on, they'd be furious. We put a wall and barbed wire around our capital, but we open our border. And it's not just for people coming in from Central America. They're coming from all over the world, and some of them are, shall we say, dangerous operators seeking to cause this nation harm with prejudice. But the elites don't see it. Some are using it as another way to bring the power of the United States down a little farther and to increase the power of the globalists a little higher. And the two groups seem to be working in tandem, even though they're working against their own interest at times. And they can't see it. This is what the reprobate mind is all about. Things that I could understand when I was a 10, 11, or 12-year-old, 50, 60 years ago. These adults that have been to college and have advanced degrees are blind to they can't even see it. They absolutely cannot see it. And those that can see it are fine with it as long as it brings the destruction of a nation and puts all of us under subjection. The reprobate mind begins with ceasing worshiping the Creator and turning your attention and worshiping the creation. And this has sparked another industry that goes back to when I was young, and we started hearing about it in the 1960s. Probably heard about it in the 50s, but I was too young to really pay attention. But over time, in the 1960s, a good cause was co-opted and now has become an endangering cause. Let's go back to the Industrial Revolution. Let's go back to like the 1930s, 1940s, especially when we were gearing up to build defense plants to fight World War II. We never understood the damage some of our chemicals could do and the pollution that could be caused. And in time, we started noticing that some of these chemicals getting into our riverbeds were toxic and dangerous. There are plenty of industrial sites in the Midwest and the Northeast that have been very damaged by not understanding our environment. As Christians, we are called to be good stewards of the environment, not worshipers of the environment, good stewards, care for it, have dominion over. And so in the 1960s, efforts were made to begin to reduce pollution. In the 1970s, we had smog in L.A. Fine. Find a way to reduce emissions. That fog is not there anymore. That smog is gone. I've been there. We cross this line when we begin to worship the earth, and everything becomes nonstop doom and gloom. 51 years ago, I think it'd be like now, sometime, and it was in April. I can't remember. It was the beginning of April or toward May. Upstate New York, high school student attending the first Earth Day. We had a big event in our little town, and they had the band there. They had a big flatbed truck, and it was quite a show. And we heard from a bunch of experts, college professors from places like Cornell University and others, Rochester Institute of Technology, talking about the dangers to our environment. And I can remember it wasn't long before that I had seen something on TV from Ohio where the Cuyahoga River had caught fire from all the pollution in it. You know, there was some stuff that burned that was floating on the surface. And sure, I mean, I would agree, you would agree, you don't just destroy your own environment. You don't pollute it eternally. That's not being a good steward. And so steps were taken over time, and things have dramatically improved and continue to do so. We probably have more people with less pollution today than 50 years ago. And technology, looking at a market, will find ways to make improvements. You can't pass legislation to demand science change. It doesn't work. I don't understand where politicians ever thought that would ever work, but that's just the fact of the matter. But now we've moved into this new order. See, I can remember in 1970 being told because of our air pollution, we were blocking out the sun, and we were going to just fall into this massive, just brutal ice age before 1980. Remember, before 1980. So that was the first time in my life I ever heard we have only 10 years left.
In the 10 years that we have left to us, as the science and scientists tell us,
the next 10 years, really, the scientists and the experts are saying that it's the decade of change. We need to really ramp up our efforts to change the way we live and become more sustainable, more green.
Well, first of all, I don't even call it climate change. It's a climate crisis. It represents an existential threat to us as a species.
Climate change is the existential threat to our planet.
The popular idea of cutting our emissions in half in 10 years only gives us a 50% chance of staying below 1.5 degrees and the risk of setting off irreversible chain reactions beyond human control.
Not a week goes by where if you put on CNN, MSNBC, read the New York Times, watched the CBS Evening News, ABC News, any of them, all you hear is we only have 10 years left. We only have 10 years left. 10 years. 10 years to fix the planet, or we're doomed. We're doomed.
Our universe is doomed! Doomed!
I've been hearing that we've been doomed, heading toward total destruction, environmental disaster for over 50 years. And every time they talk, we have 10 years left, maybe 12 years, maybe 5 years. I can remember 12 years ago, or was it 15 years ago? We were told we had 5 years left before all the ice caps would be gone. That was 15 years ago. Should have happened after 5 years or 10 years ago. The oceans are rising. That means my house in Florida should be underwater now. We've heard all these predictions, including, I remember this one. How many of you can remember, let's go back in time to 2005. Hurricane Katrina came upon New Orleans. And New Orleans was a complete failure of government and preparation. Let's start with that right away. Levees broke. Levees where millions of federal tax dollars have been poured into that city for decades. The money was never spent on the levees. It was spent on parties, buildings, travel, but very little on the levees. The newer so-called modern levees failed. The ones built by the French back in the 1700s, they worked. They held. Now, what did we hear back in 2005? Well, Al Gore and others saying, this tells you what we're going to have henceforth. We're going to see every year more vicious and horrible hurricanes that'll slam into the United States because of global warming. Global warming is causing more severe and outrageously powerful hurricanes that'll decimate the United States. We were told to expect many every year for the next 10 years and every year thereafter until we fixed climate change. We had climate action summits, climate this, climate that, climate the other thing. Well, what happened between 2005 and 2015? A precipitous drop in the number of hurricanes and their intensity. The exact opposite happened. And I really believe, honestly, that when people try to play God, they are tempting the Almighty God. And the hurricanes, if anything, ceased. The winds and the seas obeyed him, is what comes to mind. How many global warming conferences had to be canceled due to excessive snowstorms and freezing cold? I want you to understand something and think about this carefully. We go back to 1970, global freezing. By the 1980s, when the global freezing wasn't happening, then it became, global warming. That's the new one. Yeah, that's the ticket, global warming. And so we moved on to global warming. We have 10 years to fix global warming, or the ice caps will melt. Farmland will disappear. We'll have deserts. We'll have famine. We'll have all this stuff if we don't fix the climate. And what's ruining the climate? People. You and I, we're ruining it. We need less of us. Notice, the worshipers of the earth want less people. We have a lot to get into tomorrow on this program. I want to pick up on this theme. The dangers of worshiping the earth and what the Bible has to say about it. Also, we'll be getting into false prophets again. It's time to really unload on the false prophets and teachers that are out there deceiving many. If you believe in the ministry we have here at Truth to Ponder, would you consider supporting us to keep the airtime bill paid? That's all we're paying right now, is the airtime bill. Our mailing address is 21 Berkshire, Berkshire, 21 Berkshire Lane, number 263. That's number 263. We're in Sky Valley, 2 words, Sky Valley, Georgia. Zip code is 30537. And you can send your check to us, and like I say, it's all for the airtime bill. I think tomorrow and maybe even again Thursday or Friday, I'm not sure which, we're going to get back into talking about false prophets and those and understand the connection between the false prophets and those that even worship the earth.
This has been Truth to Ponder with Bob Bierman. To find out more, visit our website, truth2ponder.com. That's truth2ponder.com. Truth to Ponder, shining the light of truth in a darkening world.